March 1942. Toungoo, Burma. The air is thick with humidity and the sound of cicadas. Rainwater drips from banana leaves onto the steel hull of a tank, barely taller than a man. Its olive green paint is smeared with red mud, its engine purring like an angry animal beneath the canopy. Private Harold Hank Lawson of the 2nd Battalion, 7th Armored Brigade, wipes his brow and leans against the barrel of his 37mm M6 gun. Ahead of him, the Burmese jungle seems to breathe. Dark, wet, alive. They call us the Toy Brigade. Hank mutters through the intercom. Yeah, Sergeant Bill Harcourt replies from the driver's seat. Let's see how their tigers handle a bamboo grove. The men laugh, but the sound is uneasy. The M3 Stuart, small, fast, and barely armored, had earned a reputation as a toy tank among both friend and foe. In North Africa, it was outgunned by German Panzer IVs and hopeless against an 88mm gun. But here, in the Burmese jungle, it had a different purpose. The British Indian 7th Armored Brigade had been rushed east to assist the crumbling Allied line against the Japanese 15th Army. Their heavier Matildas and Valentines couldn't move through the swampy terrain. But the American-built M3, light, nimble, and air-cooled, could go where no other tank dared. As dawn breaks over the Irrawaddy River, the order comes through. Advance toward Toungoo. Japanese vanguard spotted moving south along the road. The Stuarts roar to life, each one a 13-ton thunderclap in a world of vines and mist. They weave between banyan trees, pushing through mud pits and collapsed bridges. The enemy doesn't expect armor, not here. By midday, the first contact comes. A Japanese Type 95 Hago tank bursts from the foliage, its 37mm gun swiveling toward the lead Stuart. The two machines face off for a heartbeat, and then both fire. A white flash, a plume of smoke. The Hago's round glances off the Stuart's angled hull, while the American shell punches through the Japanese turret ring. The Hago erupts in flame. Inside the Stuart, Hank exhales. Toy tank, huh? The radio crackled with laughter. But somewhere beyond the trees, a new sound joins the battle. German voices. Technical advisors sent from the Wehrmacht, working alongside the Japanese, observing the campaign. One of them, Oberleutnant Karl Mertens, scribbles in his notebook as he watches smoke rise over Toungoo. Amerikanische Spielzeuge, he murmurs. American toys, that shouldn't have teeth. April 1942. North of Toungoo, Burma. Rain falls in sheets, turning the dirt roads into rivers of clay. The jungle has swallowed the front lines, a maze of roots, vines, and shadows, where men vanish without sound. Sergeant Bill Harcourt's M3. Stuart rumbles forward, its treads grinding through waist-deep muck. Inside, the crew can barely hear each other over the engine's roar and the hammering rain on steel. The smell of oil, sweat, and cordite hangs in the air. They're out there, Hank says, peering through his periscope. Scouts said the Japs set up a roadblock 2 miles ahead. Let's make 'em think this jungle belongs to us, Harcourt replies. The M3's radial engine revs higher. It's lighter than any tank designed for Europe, a blessing here. Where a Panzer would bog down and choke, the Stuart dances. By nightfall, The column halts near a clearing where the dense foliage opens to a narrow path. Perfect for an ambush. The enemy thinks they'll trap the toy tanks. Instead, Harcourt's unit lays the bait. As the moon rises through a break in the clouds, the first muzzle flashes erupt from the tree line. Type 92 machine guns cut the dark, tracer rounds streaking like comets. The Stuarts roar to life, all 6 of them. Their 37mm cannons blaze, shredding bamboo and sandbag alike. One shell pierces a Japanese Type 94 truck, igniting its cargo in a flash of orange. Another Stuart swings wide, firing point-blank into a dugout. Within minutes, the night turns into chaos. The Japanese infantry, expecting clumsy armor, are instead hunted through their own terrain. The M3s don't sit still. They weave, strike, vanish, like predators. "Never seen anything like it," Private Lawson mutters, watching tracer fire fade into the trees. "It's like the jungle's fighting for us." But not all goes unscathed. A landmine takes out one Stuart's track. Another is hit by a Type 1 47mm anti-tank gun. The crew bails out, dragging the wounded commander into the mud. Still, the line holds. When dawn comes, the clearing is silent, save for the drip of rain from palm leaves. The roadblock is gone. The jungle smells of smoke and diesel. From a ridge overlooking the battlefield, Oberleutnant Mertens lowers his binoculars, stunned. He's seen American tanks in Europe, clumsy giants crushed by German guns. But here, this small, defiant machine had become something else entirely. He writes in his field report later that evening, "The Stuart light tank demonstrates extreme mobility and aggression. Its small frame, once mocked, makes it invisible among the trees. The enemy uses it not as armor, but as a predator." He underlines one word twice. Predator, May 1942. Monywa, central Burma. The monsoon clouds have rolled in like a living wall. Thunder growls over the Chindwin River, and the jungle floor trembles beneath the weight of retreating boots and engines. The Allied front has fallen back from Toungoo. But the fight isn't over. Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Stuart, commanding officer of the 7th Light Armored Brigade, spreads a damp map across the hood of a Stuart tank. The ink is running, but the message is clear. The Japanese 55th Division is closing in fast. If they reach the river crossing at Monywa, the entire Allied withdrawal could be cut off. "If we lose that bridge," Stuart says quietly, "we lose Burma." He looks at the small group of men before him, British, Indian, Burmese, their uniforms soaked and streaked with grime. Behind them sit a handful of battered M3 Stuarts, engines idling softly like beasts waiting to pounce. The plan is madness. Use light tanks to delay an entire division. But the Stuart crews don't hesitate. As dawn breaks, the jungle explodes with artillery. The Japanese advance in columns, supported by Type 95 Hago tanks and infantry swarming through the undergrowth. The defenders wait until the first trucks roll into the kill zone. Then the Stuarts strike. Harcourt's tank bursts from the tree line, guns blazing. A 37mm shell tears into a Hago's side armor. Another ricochets off a bridge piling, showering sparks into the rain. Smoke and mud fill the air. The M3s dart in and out like ghosts, using the trees as shields, disappearing before the enemy can respond. "Hit and move!" Harcourt shouts over the intercom. "Don't let them pin you." All across the line, the toy tanks fight like wolves. Their .30 caliber machine guns rake through enemy foxholes. Their light weight lets them maneuver through terrain that immobilizes Japanese armor. By noon, the enemy offensive has stalled. The bridge still stands. From the opposite bank, Japanese observers stare through binoculars, astonished that 6 small tanks are holding off an entire regiment. One officer turns to his aide and mutters, "Impossible. These machines, they should not move like that." In the chaos, Harcourt's tank takes a hit, a direct shell from an anti-tank gun. The blast rocks the Stuart sideways, flames licking from the engine compartment. Smoke fills the cabin. "Bail out!" Hank yells, dragging the sergeant through the hatch. They tumble into the mud just as another round whistles overhead. For hours, the battle rages in the downpour. Each Stuart that's knocked out buys precious minutes for the Allied column to escape. When night falls, the survivors slip away toward the river. Behind them, the bridge at Monywa still holds, long enough for thousands of soldiers to cross to safety. In his after-action report, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart writes, "We held Monywa with light tanks against impossible odds. The enemy now fears the Stuart, and rightly so. The jungle belongs to the little tank that could have crossed the lines." German advisor Karl Mertens records his own version. "We underestimated it." The M3 is no toy. In the jungle, it becomes the perfect weapon. Swift, silent, and merciless. The laughter that once echoed through Axis camps has gone silent. August 1943. Somewhere along the Indo-Burma border, the monsoon season has turned the frontier into a graveyard of rusted engines and forgotten helmets. But in the dense, fog-shrouded hills near Imphal, something new is stirring. Whispers among Japanese patrols of ghost tanks that move without sound, that vanish into the green after striking like lightning. They are talking about the Stuarts. By now, the 2nd Battalion's remaining M3s have been patched together with spare parts scavenged from wrecks. Their crews have learned to fight like jungle hunters: ambush, strike, disappear. The Stuart's engine, once loud and proud, is now muffled with improvised filters of canvas and mud to mask their approach. The British Chindits and Indian 17th Division called them the Jungle Ghosts. Private Hank Lawson, now promoted to corporal, sits inside the familiar metal shell of his tank, tracing his finger over the names painted on the armor. Hobbit, Gremlin, Tiny Terror. The crews have grown superstitious, believing the jungle itself protects them. "Never thought I'd thank this little tin can for saving my skin," Hank says, half grinning. "She's no tin can," replies their new commander, Captain Gurdeep Singh of the Indian Armored Corps. "She's a jungle cat, and were her claws their mission: intercept a Japanese supply convoy along the road to Toungoo. No reinforcements, no air cover. Just 5 Stuarts and a handful of Gurkhas moving through the mist. They roll out before dawn, the jungle silent except for the creak of branches under steel treads. When the first Japanese truck appears, headlights dimmed, soldiers half asleep in the back. The Stuarts strike. A single 37mm shell turns the lead truck into a ball of fire. Panic spreads instantly. The tanks move in pairs, firing, reversing, and melting into the forest. Within 15 minutes, the entire convoy is destroyed. Fuel, ammunition, rations, gone. The survivors flee into the brush, shouting warnings about invisible tanks. From intercepted Japanese radio messages that night. Enemy armor operates like guerrillas. They appear and vanish before counterfire. Terrain gives them advantage. Morale shaken. The myth spreads faster than truth. In villages and outposts, Japanese soldiers whisper about Allied tanks that float over rivers, climb hills, and strike from behind walls of rain. Back at camp, Lawson cleans the barrel of his gun by firelight. The metal is warm, scarred, alive with stories. "Remember when they called us toys?" he says quietly. Captain Singh smiles. Let them laugh. The jungle doesn't across the lines. German advisor Karl Mertens listens to the same rumors, his tone grim as he reports to Tokyo headquarters. The Americans built this machine for open desert. Yet it thrives here, in the most hostile terrain imaginable. It is not a tank. It is evolution under fire. The M3 Stuart, the toy tank, has become legend. March 1944. Tiddim Road, on the road to Imphal, Burma. The jungle hums with tension. It is the prelude to one of the fiercest campaigns of the Burma War. The Japanese offensive toward Imphal. For the men of the 2nd Battalion and their battered M3 Stuarts, this will be their last stand. Corporal Hank Lawson's tank, Gremlin, rolls into position on a narrow ridge overlooking a dirt road carved through the forest. The rain has stopped, leaving behind a mist that clings to the valley like smoke. Below, Japanese infantry columns move silently, hundreds of them, accompanied by light tanks and mule trains. Inside Gremlin, the air is stifling. "They've got numbers," Private Jenkins mutters, loading another round. "We've got surprise," Hank answers, "and that's worth a battalion." At dawn, the Allied artillery opens up from the hills behind them. The Stuarts follow seconds later, bursting from camouflaged pits. Their 37mm guns hammer down onto the road, catching the Japanese convoy completely exposed. The first minutes are devastating. Shells slam into fuel trucks, detonating in rolling waves of fire. The jungle glows orange. Machine guns chatter, cutting through the fog. The Japanese scatter, returning fire blindly. One by one, the Stuarts shift positions, firing, vanishing, reappearing from different angles, a deadly dance perfected over 2 years of jungle war. But the counterattack comes fast. Type 1 anti-tank teams move through the trees, their shells punching holes into the earth just meters from Gremlin. One round strikes the side armor, throwing Hank against the hatch. "Tracks hit," Jenkins yells. "Hold her steady. Keep firing." Hank shouts, slamming another shell into the breach. They destroy 2 anti-tank guns before the engine finally dies. Smoke fills the cabin. Hank kicks open the hatch, the heat searing his face. "Out! Out now!" The crew scrambles down the muddy slope, bullets snapping overhead. Behind them, Gremlin burns bright against the canopy, a steel pyre in the mist. Hours later, as dusk settles, the surviving tanks and infantry pull back toward the defensive lines near Imphal. They've lost half their number, but the Japanese advance has stalled. The narrow Tiddim road is littered with wreckage, trucks, bodies, twisted tanks, a graveyard of ambition. On a captured Japanese map found later that evening, British officers read a note scrawled in the margin. "Beware the small tanks. They move like ghosts." In the following weeks, the Japanese offensive collapses under supply shortages and relentless counterattacks. Imphal holds. Burma begins to turn. Far behind the lines, in a field hospital near Dimapur, Karl Mertens, the German advisor who once laughed at the toy tank, writes his final report before being recalled to Tokyo. In the European theater, power decides victory. In Burma, it is adaptability. The M3 Stuart, though obsolete elsewhere, became the perfect soldier here. Light, fearless, and loyal to the end. He closes the notebook, staring out at the rain-soaked horizon. "War has a cruel sense of irony," he murmurs. The toy was the tiger all along. 1945, Rangoon, Burma. When the war finally ends, rusting M3 Stuarts still sit among the banyan roots and vines, half swallowed by the jungle they once ruled. Their crews are long gone, British, Indian, Burmese, scattered across the empire's far corners. To most of the world, the Stuart is a footnote. A light tank overshadowed by Shermans and Churchills, remembered mostly for its flaws. But in Burma, its legend endures. Villagers still tell stories of the green tigers that came out of the mist and drove the invaders back. In Allied reports, officers describe how the tank's agility, reliability, and simplicity saved entire units from annihilation. It wasn't the strongest or the biggest, but it was the right weapon, in the right place, at the right time. At a small cemetery near Imphal, a plaque still stands among the graves of the 7th Armored Brigade. The inscription reads, "They said it was a toy. But in the jungle, the toy learned to fight." The rain begins again, soft, steady, endless. The sound of water on steel echoes faintly through the trees, like the heartbeat of something that refuses to die.